It was a normal Monday morning at the office. Employees were busy chatting, typing on keyboards, and sipping coffee. Some were talking about their weekend. Some were just waiting for the day to end. No one expected anything different to happen. At exactly 9:05 a.m., a man walked into the office. He wore a simple black suit, carried a small leather bag, and had a calm face. He looked around slowly, then walked to the front desk. "Good morning," he said politely. "I'm here to speak to someone about your services." The receptionist, Priya, barely looked up. She was busy texting on her phone. Without making eye contact, she replied, "Do you have an appointment?" "No," the man said gently, "but I would still like to speak to someone. I'm a potential client." Priya rolled her eyes. "Then you need to wait. And next time, take an appointment." The man gave a soft smile. "Sure, I'll wait." He sat on the waiting sofa near the entrance. Some employees nearby looked at him and whispered, "Who's this guy?" One said, "Probably another small client wasting our time." Another laughed. "Look at his cheap shoes," someone joked. Still, the man sat quietly, watching the office. His eyes moved slowly from desk to desk. He noticed who was working, who was pretending, and who was just busy talking. After 15 minutes, the manager, Mr. Varan, walked in. He was wearing expensive clothes and sunglasses inside the office. He looked at the man and asked loudly, "Who are you? Why are you sitting here?" The man stood up politely. "Good morning. I came to know about your company and wanted to try your services. I didn't take an appointment, but I'm hoping someone can speak to me." Mr. Varan laughed. "Do you think we are a small shop? We deal with top clients. You can't just walk in." The man nodded. "I understand. But maybe someone has a few minutes." Varun turned to Priya. "Tell security to take him out if he doesn't leave in 5 minutes." "Yes, sir," she said. The man heard this and smiled softly. "It's okay. I'll wait just a little more." He sat down again. A young intern named Ria saw everything from her desk. She felt uncomfortable. Slowly, she walked to the man and offered him a glass of water. "You can wait here, sir," she said kindly. "Maybe someone will be free soon." The man looked at her and smiled. "Thank you. What's your name?" "Ria," she replied with a smile. "You are very kind, Ria. Not many people are like you," he said. She blushed slightly and went back to her work. Throughout the day, the man waited. No one came to talk to him. Most employees ignored him. Some continued making jokes behind his back. At lunchtime, 2 senior workers even said, "I bet he's just trying to waste time and get free ideas." Another said, "He looks too calm. Something feels strange about him." The man ate nothing, drank only water, and kept watching everything quietly. He made small notes on his phone but didn't say a word. By evening, he stood up, walked to the receptionist again, and said, "I think I've seen enough. Thank you." Priya laughed, finally leaving. "Yes," he replied, "but don't worry. I'll be back tomorrow, and then I will give my answer." Before she could ask what he meant, he walked out of the door slowly without saying another word. People started laughing. What answer? What a joke. Only Ria watched him leave with a serious face. She felt something about this man was different. Something deep inside told her he wasn't just a simple client. That night, the office lights turned off as usual. Everyone went home, tired and ready for the next boring day. But they didn't know what was coming. Tomorrow, their lives at this office would change forever. The next morning, the office was buzzing with gossip. Employees stood in small groups, talking about the strange man who had visited the day before. Laughter filled the air. "Did you see his face when no one helped him?" One man joked. "I don't understand why he stayed the whole day," said another. "He probably thought someone would beg him to stay." A woman laughed loudly. Mr. Varan, the manager, arrived in style as usual, sunglasses on, holding his favorite coffee. "What's all this talk about?" he asked. "Sir," The man from yesterday. That so-called client, one employee replied. He waited the whole day like a fool. Varun laughed. Some people have no self-respect. Imagine sitting here all day and then leaving quietly. What a joke. The whole office joined in the laughter. Only one person didn't laugh. Ria, the intern. She sat silently at her desk, her face thoughtful. She remembered the man's calm eyes, his soft smile, and his last words. Don't worry, I'll be back tomorrow, and then I will give my answer. She felt a strange feeling in her heart. Something wasn't right. Meanwhile, in the conference room, Varun called a quick meeting with his close team. Listen, he said seriously, if that guy comes back today, we don't entertain him. He's clearly wasting our time. One employee asked, but sir, what if he's someone important? Varun shook his head. I checked with reception. He didn't give a business card, no company name, nothing. He's probably just a small-time businessman trying to look big. Another team member joked, maybe he's writing a blog on bad companies. Everyone laughed again. Varun leaned back in his chair. This company runs because of us, the core team, not people like him. So if he walks in again, let him sit. Don't offer water, don't ask anything. Just ignore him. The team nodded. At 10:15 a.m., just as the meeting ended, the front door opened. There he was. The same man, wearing the same black suit, calm, quiet, confident. He walked in like he belonged there. Priya, at the reception, froze for a moment. She looked at her phone nervously, then back at the man. Good morning, he said politely. You're back, she replied, trying to sound casual. Yes, he said with a smile. I promised to return today. People started whispering again. Some peeked over their desks. Others tried to hide their laughter. The man didn't seem to notice. He sat on the same sofa near the entrance. This time, even Ria was nervous. She didn't know what was going to happen. One of the employees from Varun's team walked up to the man and said rudely, You again? What do you want this time? The man looked up, still smiling. I just want to observe a little more. We're not a zoo, the employee said, laughing. You can't just come and watch us like animals. The man replied calmly. But animals often show their true nature when no one is watching. Don't they? The employee frowned, confused by the words. The man went back to quietly observing the office. He didn't take out his phone this time. He just watched. Ria couldn't help herself. She walked over again and said, Sir, I'm sorry for how some people are treating you. The man looked at her kindly. It's not your fault, Ria. You're one of the few who remembered how to be human. She smiled awkwardly and walked back. By lunchtime, the gossip had grown. People were guessing about the man's identity. Maybe he's a journalist. No, he must be crazy. Whatever he is, he clearly has nothing better to do. But one senior employee, Mr. Khanna, said something no one expected. What if he's someone big, testing us? Everyone laughed it off. Please, sir, you've watched too many movies. But deep inside, a few people started to wonder. At 4 p.m., Varun received a strange email. It was marked private and confidential. It was from the corporate head office. His face turned pale as he read it. It said, Prepare for a special inspection tomorrow. Details will be shared in the morning. All staff must be present. Varun stared at the screen. His heart beat faster. Why didn't anyone tell him about this earlier? Who was coming? He called the head office, but no one picked up. The man in the black suit was still sitting quietly by the entrance. At 5 p.m., he stood up and said goodbye to Ria. Thank you again, he said kindly. You're welcome, sir, she said softly. Then he turned and walked out. Everyone watched him leave, laughing again. But Varun didn't laugh. He had a strange feeling in his chest. Something was wrong. Something big was coming. That night, Ria couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about the man's words. I will give my answer tomorrow. What answer? And who was he really? The next morning, the office felt different. People came in earlier than usual. They whispered in low voices. Some looked nervous, others confused. Something was off. Everyone had received a sudden message the night before. Hall staff must attend a special meeting at 9:00 a.m. sharp. Attendance is compulsory. Nobody knew what it was about. Mr. Varon, the manager, came in at 8:30 a.m. looking serious. His usual smile was gone. He had dark circles under his eyes. He hadn't slept well. He walked straight to his office and shut the door. His team followed him in a few minutes later. "Sir, what's happening?" one asked. Varon replied, "I don't know. I got the email too. No name, no details. Just that someone important is coming from head office." One woman said, "Do you think it's about that weird man?" Varon shook his head, though he wasn't sure anymore. He checked his phone again and again. No updates. No calls. At 8:55 a.m., the entire office staff gathered in the main meeting room. It was packed. Over 40 people sat around nervously. Even those who usually took breaks at this hour were present. Whispers filled the air. Maybe it's a new policy. Or maybe someone is getting promoted. No, I think someone is getting fired. A few people laughed. Some looked around trying to appear calm. Suddenly, the door opened. Everyone went silent. A senior HR officer walked in with a straight face. Behind him walked 3 board members, 2 men and 1 woman. They were serious and quiet. And then, the man in the black suit entered. Yes, that same man. The one who had been sitting quietly for 2 days, watching everyone. Only now, he didn't look like just a quiet client. Now he walked with power. His eyes scanned the room. Calm, sharp, focused. He didn't smile this time. Everyone stared in complete shock. Rhea gasped softly. Even Varon stood up from his seat in disbelief. The HR officer spoke first. "Everyone, this is Mr. Arian Mehta. He is the CEO and owner of this company." Silence. Not a word. Not a sound. You could hear people breathing. Some dropped their pens. Others looked at each other in horror. Varon's face turned white. He couldn't believe it. The HR continued. Mr. Mehta wanted to observe the real behavior inside the company, so he chose to come here as a client, without revealing his identity. Mr. Mehta stepped forward. He looked around the room. "I wanted to see who you all really are when no one is watching. I didn't want fake smiles or practiced words. I wanted the truth." He paused. No one dared to speak. He continued, "What I saw was both disappointing and hopeful." People looked down at their hands. Some began sweating. Others sat frozen. Mr. Mehta turned to Priya, the receptionist. "Do you remember me?" She nodded slowly, fear in her eyes. "You didn't even look at me when I spoke," he said calmly. "You were too busy texting. You spoke without respect." She whispered, "I'm sorry, sir." He turned to Varon. "And you laughed at me, ignored me, and told your team to push me out." Varon opened his mouth, but no words came out. Mr. Mehta didn't stop. He pointed at several others in the room. "You mocked me, insulted me behind my back, laughed at my clothes, and forgot something important, respect." A few people started crying quietly. Then his tone softened. "But not everyone failed," he said. He turned to Rhea. "You were kind. You treated me like a person, not a problem. You offered me water. You didn't know who I was, yet you showed heart." Rhea looked down shyly. He smiled at her. "Thank you." Then he looked back at the group. "Today, we make changes," he said. "Serious changes." He turned to the HR officer and nodded. The HR officer pulled out a list and began calling names. One by one, names were called. Each person stood up in fear. For some, the message was short. "You are no longer a part of this company. Please collect your things." Some fell to their knees. Some begged, "Sir, please, give me one more chance." Mr. Mehta replied calmly, "You had your chance when you thought no one was watching." One man shouted, "I didn't know you were the CEO." Mr. Mehta looked straight at him and said, "You shouldn't need to know someone's title to treat them with respect." Half the office was empty by the end of the meeting. Around 20 people were let go. Some cried as they left. Some left in silence, ashamed. The room was quiet. Mr. Mehta looked at the remaining employees. "You all have seen what happened today. Let it be a lesson." He walked closer to them and said, "In this company, we do not value fake smiles. We value real kindness. We value humility. And above all, we treat every person, big or small, with equal respect." Then he smiled slightly. "Because you never know who's watching." Raya looked at him, her heart full of pride. She had done the right thing, even when no one told her to. The meeting room was still, too quiet. Some people stared at the floor, too afraid to look up. Others held their breath, waiting to hear their names. Fear hung in the air like a heavy fog. Mr. Aryan Mehta, the CEO, who had spent 2 days in silence, watching, now stood at the center of the room like a storm waiting to move. The HR officer stood beside him, holding a long sheet of paper. Then it began. He called the first name. Sonal Mehta. A young woman at the back stood up, her legs shaking. She worked in the marketing team. "Please step forward," the HR said. Sonal came forward with slow steps. Her voice broke, "Sir, I'm sorry if I..." Mr. Mehta raised a hand, stopping her. He looked at her directly. "You laughed at me. You mocked me when I was sitting silently. And you said I probably borrowed the suit I was wearing." Sonal's eyes filled with tears. "I didn't mean it, sir. I thought you were just." "You thought I was nobody," Mr. Mehta replied. "And now you see who I really am. But the truth is, even if I was nobody, I still deserved respect." Her lips trembled. She opened her mouth to say more, but he gently nodded toward the exit. "Please collect your things. Your time here is over." Sonal began crying as she walked out. Her friends looked on, shocked. No one spoke a word. The HR called the next name. Raj Malhotra. A man from the finance team stood up quickly. "Sir, I wasn't part of this. I just followed orders." Mr. Mehta's voice was calm. "You followed orders to laugh, to gossip. You saw someone being disrespected and said nothing. Silence is not innocence, Raj." Raj's face dropped. He had no answer. The CEO continued, "You don't need to insult someone to be wrong. Sometimes doing nothing is just as bad." Raj looked down. He walked out slowly without a word. Then came another name. Priya Sharma. Everyone turned to the reception desk. Priya stood, her face pale. Her hands trembled. "You saw me twice," Mr. Mehta said. "And both times you didn't even look at me. You waved me off like I was wasting your time." She stuttered. I thought you were just a time-pass client, sir. I was busy. Too busy to greet a visitor, too busy to be kind." He asked. Priya began to cry. "Please, sir, I need this job. I live alone. I didn't know." He nodded, softly this time. "I understand your situation. But remember, how you treat people when you think they're less important shows your real heart." He paused. "I hope you learn from this." Priya nodded, tears rolling down her cheeks as she walked away. One by one, more names were called. Some tried to explain themselves. Some cried. A few walked out without speaking. Every chair that emptied felt like a warning bell to the rest. And then, "Riya Kapoor." Gasps were heard across the room. Everyone turned toward the intern. "Riya." She stood up slowly, her eyes wide. Mr. Mehta smiled softly. "Please come forward." Riya's heart pounded. She took careful steps. "Sir, you did nothing wrong," he said gently. She froze. You showed kindness to someone you didn't know. You helped me. You respected me without knowing who I was. Rhea felt her eyes fill with tears, but this time they were not from fear. Mr. Mehta continued, people like you are the future of this company. Then he said something that shocked everyone in the room. From today, you are no longer an intern. Rhea gasped. He smiled and added, you are now a full-time employee, and we will sponsor your training in leadership and public relations. I want more people like you in this company. Applause slowly filled the room. Even the board members nodded in approval. Rhea covered her mouth in disbelief. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. He nodded. You earned it, Rhea. By being human when others chose to act like machines. As Rhea returned to her seat, a few employees wiped tears from their eyes, not from sadness, but from the sudden, heavy weight of realization. Then Mr. Mehta turned back to the group. There are two kinds of employees, he said. Those who rise by lifting others, and those who rise by pushing others down. He paused, letting the words sink in. This company has no room for the second kind. The HR officer called the final name on the list. Mr. Varun Batra. Everyone looked toward the manager. Varun stood slowly, trying to keep a strong face. But his eyes betrayed his fear. Mr. Mehta looked at him longer than anyone else. You ran this office for 3 years. On paper, your performance looked perfect. But inside, the culture was broken. Varun replied carefully, Sir, I worked hard. I always made sure we met targets. I trained these people. You trained them to ignore visitors. You trained them to laugh at others. You trained them to believe position matters more than people. Varun's mouth opened, but closed again. He had no words. You forgot the one thing that matters most, Mr. Mehta said. Respect is not a rule. It's a habit. Varun lowered his head. For the first time, he looked truly ashamed. Mr. Mehta said quietly, I hope one day you become the kind of leader who listens first and judges later. Varun nodded silently, turned, and walked out of the room. Just like that, his chair was empty too. The meeting ended with half the chairs vacant. But those who remained knew they had just witnessed something unforgettable. The meeting room slowly emptied after the storm of change. Some desks were now silent and cold. No sound of typing, no coffee cups, no laughter. Those who remained looked around with mixed emotions. Relief, guilt, hope. But in one corner of the room, one girl's eyes were wide with surprise and disbelief. Rhea Kapoor still couldn't believe what had just happened. An intern just yesterday, now a full-time employee. And not just that, the CEO himself had praised her in front of the entire company. She walked back to her seat slowly, her legs still weak. Her phone buzzed with messages from friends who had watched everything unfold from the hallway. Rhea, you're amazing. Did the CEO really say that? You're famous now. She smiled a little, but deep inside, her heart was still racing. She wasn't proud. She was thankful. She hadn't done anything big. She had simply offered water, spoken politely, and treated a man like a human being. But that small kindness had changed everything. At lunch, the mood in the office was different. People spoke softly, choosing their words more carefully. Gone was the laughter that came from gossip and jokes. In its place was quiet thinking, reflection. Even those who had survived the meeting looked at each other with new eyes. Trust had to be rebuilt. Suddenly, everyone noticed Rhea walking into the cafeteria. This time, no one ignored her. Some smiled. Some nodded. Some even pulled a chair for her. A woman from HR came to her and said, Rhea, the CEO has asked to see you in his office after lunch, alone. Rhea's heart jumped again. She nodded politely and said, Okay, thank you. An hour later, she stood in front of the CEO's glass office. She took a deep breath and knocked. Mr. Aryan Mehta looked up from his laptop. Come in, Rhea. She walked in slowly, nervous but calm. "Sit," he said with a warm smile. She sat down, still unsure why she was called. He leaned forward. "Do you know why I came here without telling anyone who I was?" he asked. She shook her head. "Because I wanted to see what this company had become when I wasn't looking." He stood up and looked out of the window. "When I started this company, we had only 5 people. We didn't have the best office or furniture, but we had something more important: respect and heart." He turned toward her. "But as we grew bigger, people forgot. Managers started caring more about targets and less about people. Slowly, the soul of this place began to die." Raya listened carefully. "That's why I had to come down, like a stranger, to see the truth." He smiled gently. "And do you know what I found?" She shook her head again. "I found you." Her eyes widened. "You reminded me of what this place used to be. Not just your manners, Rhea, but your honesty, your heart." He walked to his desk, picked up a file, and placed it in front of her. She looked down at it. It had her name on it. He said, "I want you to lead a new project. Project Human Heart. It will focus on building a better office culture. One where people help each other, where kindness matters just as much as performance." Her jaw dropped slightly. "Sir, me?" "Yes," he said firmly. "I want someone who understands people, someone who doesn't need a title to be respectful. And I believe that person is you." Raya felt a mix of emotions: fear, excitement, pride. "But sir, I'm still learning." "We all are," he replied with a kind smile. "And the best leaders are those who never stop learning." Raya nodded slowly. "I'll try my best." He smiled. "That's all I ask." As she stood up to leave, he added, "And Rhea." She turned. "Never change. Keep that same heart. That's your real power." She nodded, eyes full of emotion. When Rhea returned to her desk, her coworkers noticed something different. She was the same girl, but now people stood when she entered. They listened when she spoke, because kindness had just been promoted. The next day, the office had a different energy. Mr. Mehta sent out a company-wide email. "From today, we begin again. Let us create a culture where people feel safe, valued, and seen. Let us remember that titles may impress, but kindness inspires." In the break room, someone held the door open for another. In the lift, juniors and seniors stood together without awkward silence. People said, "Thank you," and "Please" more often. And at the center of it all was a young girl who had once been invisible, now helping to bring change. Raya was invited to every major team meeting. She was asked to speak about the importance of empathy. She gave ideas on how to improve communication between departments. Slowly, a new culture was born. A culture where no one felt small, where even the quiet ones had a voice, where visitors were treated with the same care as CEOs. 1 week had passed since the storm in the office. The air was different now. People spoke politely. Laughter had returned, but it came with kindness, not cruelty. The office looked more alive, more human, and at the center of this change was one young woman, Rhea Kapoor. She worked harder than ever. Meetings, reports, emails, presentations. Everyone now looked at her with respect. Some even called her the heart of the office. But unknown to her, a silent test was already planned. The CEO, Mr. Aryan Mehta, believed in second chances, but he also believed in true leadership. He wanted to be sure Rhea was ready to lead not just in calm, but also in chaos. So, he quietly gave an order to the HR department. Send a fake client with a fake issue. Make it difficult, rude. See how she handles it. Watch everything. The next day, it began. The test begins. Raya was in the middle of reviewing a new training proposal when she heard a loud voice near the reception. "I don't have time for delays. I came here to speak to someone who knows what they're doing." Everyone turned. A tall, sharp-looking man in a black suit stood at the front desk, clearly angry. He threw a file down and glared at the receptionist. "I was told this company was professional. This is how you treat clients." The receptionist, a new hire, looked nervous and tried to explain, but the man raised his voice again. Raya stepped out of her cabin. "Excuse me, sir. I'm Raya Kapoor. How can I help you?" He looked at her with disbelief. "You? Are you even senior enough to understand what I need? I want to speak to someone from the top." She kept her voice calm. "Sir, I may not be at the top, but I promise to listen with care, and I will make sure your issue is solved." The man crossed his arms. "Fine. Let's see if you're worth my time." Raya led him to the conference room and asked the staff to bring water. He dropped the file on the table. "This proposal, garbage. Your team sent me the wrong plan." 3 times, Rhea opened the file. It was a fake document, but she didn't know that. She read it carefully and saw a small mismatch. She calmly said, "Sir, I truly understand your frustration. If we've made a mistake, I'll take full responsibility. Give me 10 minutes. Let me check with the team and fix this." He scoffed. "You have 5. She nodded and left the room quickly. Pressure builds. Back at her desk, she gathered the team quietly. "No blaming. Just check every version of this file. See where we went wrong." Within minutes, she found the issue. It was a formatting error, not a content error. She printed a corrected version and walked back to the man. "Sir, you were right. There was an issue in the file formatting. Here is the corrected version, and I've added a summary for easier review." He grabbed the file and flipped through. He tried to stay angry. "You're lucky I'm still here." She smiled. "We're lucky to have you here, sir." The man paused. That was not the reply he expected. He stood up and, without another word, walked out. Raya thought she had failed. She sighed and sat down. But what she didn't know was that everything had been recorded. From the moment she stepped into the room to the way she handled pressure, tone, and attitude, every second was being watched by Mr. Mehta. The secret revealed. Later that day, Raya was called to the CEO's office again. She walked in, a little nervous. Maybe the client had complained. Mr. Mehta looked at her with a strange smile. "Rhea, do you know who that client was?" She shook her head. He pressed a button on his screen. A video started playing. Raya's own voice filled the room. "I may not be at the top, but I promise to listen with care." She watched in shock as the full conversation played out. "Sir, this was all a test," he said. Raya's heart raced. "Did I fail?" Mr. Mehta stood up and smiled. "You passed, with more grace than I expected." She let out a breath of relief. "But do you know what made me most proud?" he asked. She looked at him. "You didn't just solve the issue. You did it without blaming your team, without losing your calm. And even when he insulted you, you responded with respect." He paused and said something that made her eyes tear up. "That's how real leaders are born." She wiped her eyes and smiled. "Thank you, sir. I just tried to do the right thing." He nodded. "And now, it's time to give you more." A new title. The next morning, a new email was sent out to the entire office. Subject: Promotion Announcement. "We are proud to announce that Ms. Rhea Kapoor is now the Deputy Head of Culture and Client Relations. Her leadership, kindness, and ability to handle pressure reflect the new heart of our company. Let her journey be a reminder. It takes courage to be kind, and even more to stay kind under fire." When Rhea walked into the office that morning, people clapped for her. They stood. They smiled. They felt proud. Not because someone powerful had won, but because someone kind had won. And for the first time in years, the office didn't just look successful. It felt human again. It had been 2 weeks since the storm that changed everything. The office that once felt cold, full of fear and fake smiles, now had something different in the air: warmth. People still worked hard. Deadlines still existed, But there was something new: respect, trust, and real smiles. And in the middle of this silent transformation stood Rhea Kapoor, now the deputy head of culture and client relations. But Rhea didn't change. Not inside. She still said good morning to the guards. Still helped the new interns find their way around. Still took notes with full focus and listened more than she spoke. And that's what made people admire her more. The surprise invitation. One evening, just as Rhea was shutting down her laptop, she got a call. It was from Mr. Aryan Mehta's personal assistant. Rhea, the CEO would like to invite you to a special dinner tomorrow. Only 10 people are invited. He says you've earned your place. She was shocked. Me? Why? The assistant laughed gently. Ask him yourself tomorrow. The next evening, she arrived at a beautiful private rooftop restaurant in the city. The view of the skyline was breathtaking. Only a few tables were arranged under warm lights. It felt more like a family gathering than a business dinner. She saw Mr. Mehta standing near a long table, smiling. Rhea, welcome. I'm glad you came. She smiled back. Thank you, sir. As she sat down, she saw other faces she recognized. People who had shown honesty, leadership, and care over the past 2 weeks. It was clear. This dinner wasn't for the most powerful people. It was for the most genuine. The CEO stands to speak. After everyone had finished dinner, Mr. Mehta stood up and tapped his glass. Everyone turned silent. I want to say something tonight, he began. Years ago, when I started this company, I had nothing. No big investors, no fancy office, just a small team with big dreams. He looked around. We worked hard. We built something special. Not just a business, but a family. He paused. But then, something changed. As we grew, I got busy. Meetings, travel, expansion. I trusted others to take care of the soul of this company. He sighed. And slowly, I lost sight of it. I forgot to check not just the numbers, but the people. Everyone was listening closely. That's why I returned in secret. I wanted to see what this place had become when I wasn't watching. He looked at Rhea. And what I saw shocked me. Gasps went through the crowd. Some of our best employees were being ignored. Some were bullied. Others were pretending to smile, but wanted to quit. He walked slowly along the table. But then, I saw something else. He stopped near Rhea. I saw one small act of kindness. A glass of water. A soft, "Are you okay?" from someone who didn't even know who I was. He looked directly at her. That moment reminded me why I started this company in the first place. Rhea felt her eyes tear up. That one act told me, there is still hope. There is still light. Everyone clapped softly. A new chapter announced. Mr. Mehta continued. From now on, I want this company to not only be known for success, but for goodness, for creating leaders who lead with both mind and heart. He turned to the group. And to do that, I'm building a new board, a board that will guide the culture of this company. Rhea, her eyes widened. I want you to be one of the founding members. Rhea was speechless. Sir, I don't know what to say. He smiled. Just say yes. She nodded slowly. Yes, with all my heart. Everyone clapped louder now. But Mr. Mehta wasn't done. There's one more thing, he said, raising his voice gently. Some of you may be wondering, why all this? Why so much care for one intern, one story? He paused. Because leadership is not about titles. It's about example. He turned to the group again. You don't fix a broken system with fear. You fix it with people like Rita, who lead with kindness, who act when no one is watching, who treat even the smallest job with dignity. Silence filled the space. Not the heavy kind, but the powerful kind. The kind that comes when truth is spoken.